I don't know about you guys, but I have a drawer in my house where we shove all of our rubbish. You might have something similar, a junk cupboard or a junk room, but it's where you put all the stuff you don't want other people to see, the stuff you don't know where else to put. Now, we're supposed to sort through it and throw a lot of it out, but we never quite get around to it. Maybe we don't have time, maybe we can't be bothered, or maybe we simply can't face it. So we hide it in that drawer. If you have a friend that comes over, you just shove everything in there, and so your house looks clean and tidy, and no one can see the mess behind it. And as time passes, not only have we not sorted through the drawer, but we've kept adding more and more to it. And as long as that door is closed, you don't have to worry about the contents. But when you shut the door, the stuff hasn't gone away. And just like the physical drawer in my house, we all have a drawer inside of us where we shove our failures and our fears and our mistakes, and we can find ourselves really struggling. We are ignoring the fact that there is a drawer or cupboard or room in our house that is full of junk, full of traumas we never got over, full of doubts that were never answered, full of broken relationships, full of bad words spoken at you, full of bad habits. And we've just stuffed everything in there and shut the door, wondering why we love God, but we're feeling miserable. We believe in his power and his amazingness, yet we're struggling with our mental health. People love to label you. It's part of being human. And they label you by an issue because it makes them feel better about themselves. Oh, you see her, she's bad. Oh, you see him, he's a bully. People just love to put labels on you. And we fear that. Humans will continuously bring up something for 15 years that you did one time in your past for like 5 minutes. And they'll tell you so often about that one time that you will start to believe them when they tell you that the total of your life is that one mistake that you made. And so we hide that because we fear it as a form of protection, so people don't see the issues to label us by. And that's part of what we shove into the drawer. And it just keeps building up until one day the drawer isn't going to close anymore. So we need to sort through it, no matter how long it takes or how painful it may be. We have to face it. Last time I spoke back in February, I spoke about being brave, and I'm not going to repeat that talk, but essentially that is what we need to be. Because if we want the best possible relationship with God, if we want, in the words of the incredible Tim Ross, to come out of the cave, we need to face the contents of our drawers. But when the drawer is getting harder and harder to force shut, it can be a real struggle. And this struggle can be seen in the story of Elijah, a story that shows that mental health was still common back in the times of the Old Testament. Elijah was a powerful man of God, yet he found himself emotionally drained and struggling with depression. It is all too easy to think that as a Christian, you need to have it all figured out, that you can't have problems or feel a certain way. But this is not true, and Elijah shows us this. As it says in James 5:17, Elijah was a human being, even as we are. Whether you are stressing over homework and exams, feeling really anxious, or just struggling to find a reason to get out of bed in the morning, you are not alone, and you are certainly not a bad Christian. James tells us that Elijah is like us, and he suffered from anxiety, despair, depression, loneliness, to name just a few. The passage we see this in is 1 Kings 19, verses 1-9, and it says this: Now, Ahab told Jezebel everything Elijah had done and how he had killed all the prophets with the sword. So Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah to say, May the gods deal with me, be it ever so severely, if by this time tomorrow I do not make your life like that of one of them. Elijah was afraid, and he ran for his life. When he came to Beersheba in Judah, he left his servant there, while he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness. He came to a broom bush, sat down under it, and prayed that he might die. I've had enough, Lord, he said. Take my life. I am no better than my ancestors. Then he lay down under the bush and fell asleep. All at once an angel touched him and said, Get up and eat. He looked around, and there, by his head, was some bread baked over hot coals and a jar of water. He ate and drank and then lay down again. The angel of the Lord came back a second time and touched him and said, "Get up and eat, for the journey is too much for you." So he got up and ate and drank. Strengthened by that food, he travelled 40 days and 40 nights until he reached Horeb, the mountain of God. There, he went into a cave and spent the night. One thing that stands out to me about this story is how fast Elijah's mental health changes. In the chapter before this, Elijah is bold and courageous, victoriously facing all kinds of odds and experiencing the extraordinary works of God, with the chapter concluding, "The hand of the Lord was on Elijah." But in chapter 19, we find him fearful, running scared, exhausted, depressed, and wanting to die. But the problem is not necessarily what we think the problem is. It's not just what has got us into the place where we are currently struggling. The problem is our strategies when dealing with the problem. Elijah's strategy was to run. He fled to Beersheba, which was a desert place, but even that was not enough, because he then left his servant and carried on into the wilderness for a day. The problem was not that he ran. The problem was that he didn't consult God. He didn't let him in. He sought his shelter in a bush, not in God. Nowhere in this chapter do we find Elijah calling on God or seeking his direction. When we are struggling like Elijah did, we need to let God in. He already knows what is in our drawer that we keep shut to everyone else. He went through it the first time with us, feeling every tear of betrayal and hurt and anxiety and grief and fear. But he's not the God of telling you to get over it. He's the God of asking you to let him in. We have a God who is the fourth man in the fire. When King Nebuchadnezzar threw Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego into the furnace for worshipping God and not him, he didn't pull them out. He stepped in with them. And he wants to do the same for us. He is asking us to let him into our hearts. And we're not answering him or letting him in fully because we fear that he's going to tell us to get over it or try harder or do better. But we don't serve the God of try harder. We serve the God of let me in. When Elijah was at his lowest, God didn't tell him to move on or get over it. He told him to eat and have a nap because that was what Elijah needed. All that pain that you have hidden away, that you need to sort through in order to move on, God isn't going to tell you to get over it. He wants you to sort through it with his help so that you can heal and fulfill the purpose that he has called you to. He will be right there beside you when you face the contents of the drawer. Elijah's journey was not yet over, and he went on to do some incredible things for God. Your journey isn't over either. I think some of our fear about facing our problems is caused by our forgetfulness. We forget who is in our corner, who has promised to carry us in times of difficulty. We forget how good our God has been up until this moment and how good he has promised to continue to be. We need to remember that this is not our problem. This is not the first time we struggled, and it won't be the last. And what happened the last time we were in a place like this? He came through. He has never failed. We are trapped in this cycle of every time we face a problem, we're like, how am I going to get through this? And it ends up being the same way we got through last time, with him by our side. And I'm not saying this is going to be an easy process. It might be really painful, and it might take a really long time. But what I want to stress is that embracing your pain does not mean you're negating your faith. Jesus knew that Lazarus was going to rise again, yet he still wept at his death. Embracing your pain is part of being in the likeness of God, which is what we are called to do. And it doesn't have to be physical tears either. Those of you that know me know that I don't cry very often, but it can be the tears we don't let fall as well. God hears those. He hears what's on your heart. So today, I want you to open up that drawer. Stop shoving everything inside. That mask of perfection that you're hiding behind when you push everything into a drawer when your friend is coming over, or you just don't want to face it. Take it off. In Jesus, we are all made new. We have a God of forgiveness. He wipes the slate clean. When we ask, he forgives. He doesn't hold a grudge. He just loves us unconditionally. Some of you need to shake off the words of other people who keep bringing up your mistakes and failures. And you need to look at them and go, do you know what? You know a lot about my past, but you have no idea where my God is calling me to. We need to start believing that God has got something so much bigger and better in our future than the struggles that we currently find ourselves in or the mistakes of our past. There is so much more to our identity than some mistake that we made or some problem that we're struggling with. Let God in to make you new. Feel the freedom, the relief and the lightness of being real, because we cannot fully heal until we are real and until we are honest with ourselves. You were created for freedom. Now, some people think that freedom is not being found out, but true freedom is not having to hide. It's one of the things that has stuck with me about Soul Survivor was a talk focused around that. If you take anything from today, I want it to be that you don't have to hide anymore. Not from your friends, not from your family, not from yourself, and definitely not from God. Open up that drawer, open up your hearts and let him in. Let him heal you. In fact, let's get rid of the drawer completely and let's live freely and for God.